What is the most painful experience you've had? Story 1. I was welding and quite big piece of hot melted metal dripped straight inside of my shoe. It went through the sock and melted my skin. Story 2. I was conscious under general anesthesia. The moment I was supposed to be knocked out, I was aware and realized I was trapped. I couldn't hear what was going on in the OR, but my ears were ringing and I was hallucinating some weird that kept going in a loop, and I started feeling a never-ending stabbing in my abdomen. After an hour and a half of this hell, my surgery was done, and then I started feeling a terrible pain of trapped gas in my shoulders. The whole thing was 10/10 on the pain scale. Story 3. Had an abscessed tooth once that gave me a abscess on my inner gum around an inch wide and half an inch thick. Didn't have room in my mouth for my tongue to rest without it pushing all the liquid, which hurt like hell. Ended up in desperation drinking a ton of absinthe, 90% vol, to numb my mouth and poking it with a needle to drain it. Was living on enough painkillers to fund the pharmacist's yearly Christmas party for a few weeks until the dentist had time to see me. Story 4. The last time I answered this, my answer was gallbladder attacks. They felt like a heart attack and about an hour of intense pain. I really didn't think much else could compare to it. But I'm happy to report that last week I gave birth without any pain relief or epidural tearing in the process, and that experience made the gallbladder attack seem like a warm hug. Story 5. Whenever I travel to different countries, my ears start to hurt so bad, which I assume it's because of the difference in air pressure. Swallowing and chewing gum never helped, and the last trip I had was the most painful one and had to endure it for 2 hours during flight. It felt like I got stabbed in the ears from the inside. It affected my hearing a bit for like a week before it went back to normal. Would love for anyone to come up with another solution because I'll be having another trip soon. Edit. Yes, forgot to mention, but I also have tried holding my nose and blow it. Didn't work. Also appreciate every advice you guys gave me. I might visit a doctor for it. Edit 2. I'll try nasal spray and get some airplanes. Thank you again. Story 6. Not physically painful, but having episodes of vertigo constantly, and I am still in my early 20s, living in constant fear of falling. I can't even exercise or do anything which involves movements. Story 7. A migraine from taking prescribed medication for something else entirely, too close together. I never had one before and haven't had one since. I've given birth twice without an epidural for comparison purposes. I now have a whole new level of respect for migraine sufferers. Story 8. So my experience happened all within 2022. I've lost 8 friends within a 2-month span, like when I lost the first 3 to a heart attack, health complications, and drug abuse. I kinda dealt with it. After the 4th and the 5th friend passed away, the next 5th and 6th died to I think that's when I started to spiral. From there, my 8th friend died, which meant 98% of my friends have passed away. Mentally, I was breaking down. Most people had no idea what to do, and me trying to connect and be friendly outwardly towards people wasn't going to happen. I even had a girl who worked at Starbucks friend me and messaged me to get to know me. We went to hang out, and she said I looked like I was sad every time I came in. But after that, she blocked me and stopped working in that building because I had a hard time just conversing. I went through a terrible time, and it was so hard to bounce back. All the people I joked with and held dear were gone. My closest friend, who was my confidant, was the one that died to They never even told anyone they were using, so it was a big shock to their family and me. That year was hard. I was removing myself from people and socially myself to the point I wanted to not go out at all. Friends, before we continue our video, I want to remind you of the importance of subscribing to our channel. We are also waiting for your comments and likes. Thank you. Let's move on to the video. Story 9. I've had surgery for 2 collapsed lungs, had a bottle smashed on my head and been run over by a car, requiring multiple surgeries and permanent plates/pins, but nothing comes close to the chronic cluster headaches I have suffered the last 7 years. It's a genuine 10/10. Days, weeks, or months on end. Soul-destroying stuff. Story 10. Once I was stabbed in the neck by some guys robbing my house. The stabbing didn't hurt at all, but I really thought I was going to die, and I begged the guy who stabbed me not to leave. I didn't want to die alone. He walked out, and it absolutely crushed me. That was the worst emotional pain of my life. The worst physical pain was while I was in the hospital. I had a nurse who was sadistic as f***. She gave me a shot of morphine into my thigh, and I don't know what she did wrong, but my whole leg turned black and blue and hurt worse than anything I've ever felt in my life. Story 11. Double miscarriage. Even worse, when I have endometriosis anyway, plus was being abused to keep it a secret, plus had my nipples pierced the day I started miscarrying. I was fainting and vomiting from the pain, but I'm very fortunate that I didn't have any infections. Aside from endometriosis itself, I think my braces were my second most painful. I've had sepsis, died and got resuscitated, almost drowned, and a ton of other things, but braces take the cake. Story 12. When I was a kid, I tried to take the pips out of an apple with a kitchen knife. Suffice to say, I failed badly and sliced the part of the hand between the index finger and thumb. I'm still told to this day that it took 6 nurses to hold me down while they tried to treat me, and the screams could be heard through the entire floor of the ward. Story 13. Getting my IUD installed. I don't know which part was worse, the ungodly little pinch of them measuring and then inserting the IUD, or the cramping in my uterus that lasted for a half hour after putting it in. First time in my life I've ever actually passed out. Everyone I know who has gotten an IUD had the similar experience, and yet doctors still insist that Tylenol should help. Meanwhile, when a man gets a vasectomy, he's given Valium and local anesthetic and a lollipop. Story 14. Physically, childbirth. I labored very quickly, and I was throwing up, sobbing, rocking back and forth. I couldn't sit straight because it felt like I was sitting on a knife, so I'd shift to one side every time a contraction hit. Then I had to have an emergency section because my son went into distress and I felt all of it. Blacked out multiple times in the short time to get him out, then was unconscious for a few hours after his birth. Emotionally, when my partner passed away in 2014. Story 15. Luckily it was having an ingrown toenail for me. The bad thing was not the operation or anything like that. It was afterwards when I was recovering from the operation. And since I had 2 ingrown nails, both feet had surgery at once. And when I was recovering and was in a lot of pain, I'd also got a 41 degrees Celsius fever. I tend to get very high fevers, so while recovering I also suffers from the fever, making it probably the worst week of my life if we talk about physical pain. Story 16. Getting my wisdom teeth surgically extracted without being put to sleep. It was done by student doctors with only local anesthesia. I was trying to save money, was only $800, but since they were students, the teacher kept explaining in graphic detail everything that was happening. Break the jaw here and here. Cut the gums off. Slice the tooth in 3 parts. I screamed. I kicked. I nearly passed out multiple times. I had sweat running down my body. I was shaking in agony. I kept trying to mentally disappear. No amount of anesthetic could reach the deeper layers, and I could feel everything. Tears started streaming, but we pushed on. Took about 3 hours, and when we finished I thanked them and apologized for all the screams. Lol, the pain was awful long. I think it scarred me for life. Lol, the other was an infected tear. Let's just say my ass got stretched when it wasn't supposed to. I still have not forgiven the guy who did it. Seriously, screw him, lol. And I developed a tear in my rectal wall that got infected. It hurt nonstop, not to mention was very embarrassing. I could barely function, stopped going to class or work, and using the toilet made me pass out from the pain. It took 4 weeks and powerful antibiotics to heal, fortunately. I didn't need surgery. The whole time I was in excruciating pain and seriously contemplated myself to end the pain. Copious amounts of painkillers still couldn't help. I was in a fraternity and they found out, so then I got relentlessly teased about it while being in horrid pain, and since I lived there I couldn't escape getting made fun of. Overall 0/10. Do not let your anus get torn. It's a horrible experience. I seriously almost died from it. Story 17. Losing my dog is pretty high up there. I've lost a lot of family, but none of those deaths affected me the same way my dog's death did. Story 18. Needle into knee. Big needle. Story 19. Period pains. It's the only pain that has made me throw up and pass out. It's the only pain that has made me consider to make it stop. No doctor takes me seriously, and I'm not allowed to check for endometriosis or receive any treatment because it sounds excessive, could cause damage, and isn't worth the risks. Story 20. Corrective throat surgery for sleep apnea. Hyoid suspension and genioglossus muscle advancement. This is a good note to end on. Please write your stories in the comments. I'll be happy to add them to future videos. Also, you can rate our other videos. We would be very grateful. Thanks for watching. Have a nice day.